Hello, I'm Chris Flisher, and welcome to Turning of the Wheel, an intelligent, lively discussion on astrology, art, and adventure. Timing is everything, and as the great wheel turns, we are best prepared when we are best informed. Join me as I explore the current planetary alignments and offer insights for coping with change. Educational, informative, enlightening, the Turning of the Wheel is a welcome pause in your daily swirl of constant change. Through intelligent discourse, inspired guests, and educational segments, I will help to enlighten your knowledge of astrology and guide you to accept change as the great wheel of life turns. Call in with your questions and speak with some of the greatest visionaries in the time-tested practice of astrology. Turning of the Wheel, Astrology, Art, and Adventure with Chris Flisher, each week on Turning of the Wheel podcast. Hello and welcome to Turning of the Wheel. As you know, my name is Chris Flisher and this is a show about astrology. And today I've got a great guest coming on in a few minutes. I just want to remind you about my newsletter, which goes out every Sunday afternoon. And in there you'll find a couple of paragraphs of mundane astrology as they apply to all of us. And then I break it out into the individual signs beneath that for the week to come. It's always on a week-by-week basis, and it is based on the theme of the week. I'm not going to tell you to go out and buy a lottery ticket on Tuesday, but I would say perhaps money might be in your chart this week if you are that person with the planets in that part of your chart. So I encourage you to do that. I always encourage you to read your rising sign and your sun sign together. Put them together. You're going to get far more accuracy that way. And as always, if you have any questions, you can always contact me. So without further ado, I'd like to get my guest on. Her name is Susie Cox. She's a very well-known astrologer from the Arizona area. And I read an article about her, of hers recently about 2020. And we're not talking about going to the eye doctor here. We're talking about the year 2020, when a lot of stuff is going to be hitting the fan, as they say. And it's a great honor to have Susie on today. Susie, welcome to Turning of the Wheel. It's been great to get you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah. So your article was very great. I mean, as astrologers, we've all been talking about this for quite some time. We know that as of 2008, we knew that Pluto was going to be creeping up on us sooner or later, and we certainly are seeing that. And it's not as if Pluto doesn't impact other parts of the world as well, but we're particularly seeing it in the chart of the United States. And I'm curious as to what your initial takeaways are. They probably are very much like all of us. We have this sort of this looming, dire, dark figure in the sky looming over us in the coming years. And I'm curious as to what your take is on it. So.
Well, overall, I'm a positive astrologer. Yeah. I mean, my logo is positive astrology right underneath my name. So I really, I use astrology to help soothe the world, to bring a sense of understanding and, bringing a kind of a feeling of peace to everybody. And I have to be realistic. I mean, I can't be sugar-coated. So this is, an important alignment of planets. I'm calling it a party of planets in Capricorn. Yeah. And when there are a few planets in one sign, I like to make astrology easy to the world. So instead of like, this is forming a conjunction, they're having a party. Mm-hmm. And there's a big party that's happening in Capricorn. Some of them have already gone in. And as you talked about, Pluto went into Capricorn, into the sign of Capricorn in 2008. And Pluto is power. Pluto is the elite. Pluto is people, a strong guy flexing his muscles. And it really talks about a sense of control. Capricorn, is the planet, is the sign of the taskmaster of the zodiac. Capricorn likes to get things done and organized, and he's big on rules and kind of restructuring things. Now, what's interesting is that Saturn just went into its own sign of Capricorn, or will go in on December 21st, coming up soon. So it's like having two Saturns. Exactly. Saturn in its same sign. So Saturn is business oriented. Capricorn is about structure, restructuring, and government and big business and corporations. And so there's a phase that's coming in, and of course there will be more planets that will be going into this party as we get closer to 2020.
Right. It's interesting. I too, I want to echo your thoughts. I too see myself as an optimistic astrologer. I always try to find the silver lining in the cloud out there, so to speak. But this is a party attended by some rather sober players, I would say. This is not the
not
Mars
a fun party.
This is not a Mars, Venus, Mercury dance along or sing along. This is a gathering of the judges before the jury, it seems like to me.
Yeah, I agree. And before we kind of pull it all together, I just wanted to look at the individual planets involved with this party,
Sure,
and I think that
means.
would be kind of go into it. So Pluto was the first one that went in. He went into Capricorn in 2008, and in 2009 was this big Supreme Court controversial decision on the Citizens United,
right,
2009,
right.
Which basically made corporations people, really, in a way.
Yeah.
So that was really a perfect example of Pluto going into Capricorn right off the bat. So that kind of set up we want to be in charge, and we're the ones that are making the rules. Pluto is really one of the authority figures, and so is Capricorn. And you're right, a party is. It maybe is not the best word. It's really like a
well, it depends upon your definition
meeting.
Of party. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a meeting and gathering of all these energies, and Pluto is one of them. It's like, okay, Pluto is of course about transformation and death and rebirth. So the wonderful thing about astrology is, these planets come, but then they go. Right. It's a phase. There is always a phase. So we're coming into this big phase, and Pluto is the first one that went in to kind of set the theme, and the theme is pretty set right now. Now, to add to that, in coming up, Saturn is going into Capricorn. So Saturn is associated with Capricorn. They're a team. So having that going in just gives it kind of double the Capricorn energy. And Saturn is very serious, and Pluto is pretty serious too. So you're right. We don't have like any fun guys happening here.
Right.
Now, what is coming in also to add to that is Jupiter. Now, Jupiter will be entering Capricorn December 2nd, 2019. So little by little, they're all kind of going into that same part of the world. Now, I'm part of the zodiac. Now, Jupiter is a positive guy. He's associated with Sagittarius, and he does like to party. But being in Capricorn, even though Jupiter, everybody goes, oh, Jupiter's so much fun and, really joy, he's a little bit of he likes to stir things up.
Right.
And especially if there are things that, that he kind of wants to play with.
Right.
It was like, hey, let's move this around. So he Jupiter, if this is good, more is better. So he makes things bigger and expands everything. And Jupiter is really good at stirring things up to where it turns into a scandal.
Yeah, it's like it amplifies everything. It just comes in and just expands.
Amplifies. That's a really good word for it.
Yeah.
And this is stirring up the corporate world or the business world, or of course government,
in a very large manner. In a very large manner, I would add. This is going to be a
big way. Yeah. So Jupiter's going to just kind of shake. Everything's already there, and Jupiter's going to come in to shake things up. Now, Jupiter has a 12-year orbit, so he's only going to be there for 1 year. So it's really 2019 to 2020.
But his
impact that he comes in.
His impact is there. He will be felt. I think if Jupiter in this case is kind of like he's the teenager who's going to a party with his parents, and his mother and Saturn and Pluto are in the room with him, and he's like, I don't want to party with you guys at all. Where's my Mars and Venus to go have fun with, And but he does raise the volume by all means, and that's where we're going to see. I think it's really going to heighten our senses with regard to that. So.
And Jupiter is international, too. So even though we're in the States and we're talking about the United States, this is happening really all over the world. There's a whole nationalism versus, globalism that's happening. And, Capricorn is very good at boundaries and wanting to control things. So I would think with all this Capricorn, people are going to wanting to make a boundary between this is mine and this is yours.
Right.
Capricorns aren't very generous.
No, and
I mean,
they're fairly reserved too. They're fairly, stoic,
yes.
kind of a little bit sober in some ways, which of course is what we think of. I think of when I think of Saturn. It's kind of that sober. Not that they're not joyful; they have joy to them, but there is, there's just that sort of underlying kind of quietness to them and sort of reserved.
There's a purpose.
There's a purpose.
They come in with it. There's a purpose, and really all the planets have a purpose. They've all got a duty. I mean, Mars is, Venus is to bring love to the world. Mars is to bring action. Everybody, all the planets have a duty. And when they come together like this in this big grouping, this big lineup, they are all adding their individual energy to the overall picture. Yeah. And Jupiter is like, I want to mess things up. I want to stir things up. I want to push people's buttons and where they won't feel too secure.
Right, and it's interesting, especially with this kind of collection in this gathering, which we call a stellium, for people who will be born during then. They will have this stellium at that time. And Jupiter is going to be, I think, as you mentioned, he really wants to sort of bring in the drum and bang loudly. And I think that will draw the attention to the crisis being that will probably be unfolded by the Saturn and the Pluto together. Because I see... At least in this country, I see, I think of Capricorn as infrastructure, and we've had a lot of talk about infrastructure, and yet nothing has been done about it. I could easily see this as a time when a dam breaks or a road breaks or something like that, and somebody's got to get this fixed, when our attention will be drawn to this in some way, it seems like. I could easily see that.
I agree. And Capricorn is Earth. It's an Earth sign. Yeah. So it really does talk about not only infrastructure, which is very earthy, but the environment.
Yes.
Capricorn, and now, once again, I'm Miss Positivity, but this is prone for earthquakes and kind of restructuring. It's like the Earth is not only as government and us going through restructuring, the Earth is going through a regrouping too. So I would imagine environment would come up pretty strong.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah,
time.
We're seeing the signs of that already. I mean, we're seeing an enormous amount of weather-related incidences and natural occurrences as well. There's a lot of talk out there about the ultimate, earthquakes going to be coming through that are be very powerful, that could leave a huge impact depending upon where they hit. And if they hit in California or the West Coast, for example, I'm not trying to be alarmist here, but these are things to be apprised of, I think, at least.
Well, I do want to talk about, the possibilities and the challenges, but maybe towards the end, Chris,
Sure.
we can talk about really the things why these planets are here and what they're going to be bringing to us and how the change is ultimately going to be beneficial. I do feel that there's a pattern in the cycle and waves and phases, and we're going into a Capricorn phase, and then after that I'll go into an Aquarius phase. So, all these phases are important for our evolution.
They are, and they're necessary.
There's challenges. But I want to look at the positive maybe towards the end, too.
Sure, yeah. They're necessary changes. Nothing really happens without some sort of effort. Nothing worth having ever comes too easily, I would say. And I think that Pluto is there to sort of remind us that, and I think Saturn as well, reminding us that we have to take care of certain things. We can no longer sweep them under the carpet. I think that's what
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
But let's get back to the party.
Yes. So we have Pluto is the guy that wants to be in charge. Saturn is the taskmaster, then likes to kind of do the rules. Jupiter is the wild teenager. I love that just wants to kind of stir things up. And it's international, too. Jupiter has an international style. So, of course, the environment doesn't know boundaries or borders. So Jupiter is going to be more international. And then we have Mars.
That's right.
So Mars comes in. Now, Mars is a fast guy. He's only there once. His orbit is once every 2 years. So he's only going to be with that grouping for maybe about 3 months. And Mars goes into Capricorn February 2020. And I think it's about 3 months that Mars is going to be there. I talked about that a little time, but Mars is Mars is a kicker. Mars brings action, and to me, it is like, this is what I call Pluto's entourage, right? Yeah. When there's a big turning point in the world or in astrology, even when a planet goes into a new sign, a slow planet, he goes in with his entourage.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's, sneaks in and nobody's looking. It's like, oh, well, hey, if you didn't notice me, check out my entourage. So this is quite a formidable entourage, I would say. And Mars is a trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Mars typically, okay, there's a situation that's getting ready to happen, and then Mars comes in and kind of kicks everybody in the butt and says, okay, do it now. So there's going to be this window in time, that is like, February, March, April to 2020, that Mars is going to be going through those planets too. And, the positive part of Mars is, hey, we're going to shake things up even a little bit more. But Mars really brings in a volatile side of it. It's war, it's anger, it's upsets, it's, conflict.
Mm-hmm.
He's, unless you're really doing sports or something like that, Mars can help you lift weights and everything, and good with debate and, being more aggressive. But when you add Mars to this already strong, formidable grouping of planets, he's going to kind of push everybody to the brink, I would think.
Right. He brings the Molotov cocktail to the party is what he does. He kind of
to the part. Exactly.
Right. He's the one that lights the fuse, and that's
yeah.
where. And even though it's brief, but that's all it takes is that trigger, as you mentioned.
That's it. He's a trigger, and he's Mars is going, oh man, this is so much fun. Look at all these things that I'm going to trigger off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be fun for him, because and Capricorn is so stoic and stable and secure and they call it the stow words. Saturn is the stow word: structure, stuck, stop, all these stow words.
Steady, stalwart, yeah.
Yeah, it's all the still words, which can be, changing the basic structure. So when Mars, goes into Capricorn, and Capricorn likes to be stable and secure, and Mars is like, not going to happen. We're going to make some changes here.
Yeah.
So it's almost like Mars, I think, is kind of excited about doing it, because Capricorns are like, no, we're not going to change. Mars is like, yeah, just wait.
Right.
Just
They sort of thrive on the challenge, I think. I mean, Mars sort of loves this kind of, being able to be in the position of getting that sort of thing going. I mean, it's perfect for that.
He would love this. This was like a big block of concrete.
Yeah.
I mean, and Saturn, Saturn, what is the mineral for Saturn? Lead.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So there's heaviness about it. It really is. I mean, officially that's lead. So it's heaviness, concrete, structure, all of that is Capricorn. And Mars is like, I'm just going to come in and kind of change all that structure and make it all, kind of like blow it apart in a way. I like your, and even though I know that sounds weird, but if all this concrete is so heavy and so getting in everybody's way, it's Mars's job to come in to break it apart.
Of course, yeah.
Really?
Of course, yeah, it really is. And that's exactly what he's going to be doing, I think.
Yep, all the planets have a job and a duty. It's like their purpose. Mm-hmm. And Pluto is like, I'm making heavy rules. Saturn is like, I'm going to ensure some of these rules are going to happen. Jupiter is like, no, I'm going to bring in some new rules. And Mars, I'm going to break them all apart. I'm just going to come in and just kick everybody. So they really, you're right. There are really sweet, positive planets. None of them got invited to the party. They're outside looking in going, they don't want us in here.
Right, exactly. It's more like, I think you say a gathering is probably a better example than a party.
Yeah.
But they're having a conference meeting, having a very, very serious conference about what's going to be
serious happening. Conference on how they want to control the world.
Right.
And and it's a phase. They can just be, okay, we're going to control everybody. It's only a phase. So just enjoy it while you have it, because it's going to come and it's going to go.
Mm-hmm. The thing to remember is that they are slow-moving planets, of course. Jupiter is moving fast. Saturn is moving 28 times a year. I mean, it takes 20 years to go around the circle. And then Pluto is 248. So Pluto and Saturn are going to be moving slowly. So yes, it will pass, but it may take it's going to take some time for it to pass.
Right, yeah, and I would call them all slow except for Mars.
Right, exactly.
You know, Pluto, right here, Pluto 248, Saturn 30, Jupiter 12. Mars is only 2 years. So Mars goes around once every 2 years, and so he goes faster. But we couldn't handle 2.5 years of Mars. 2 months of Mars is all we can handle.
That's right.
So that's why Mars really goes the fastest, because he comes through and breaks everything apart. Then he's gone. You couldn't handle Mars just sitting there for too long. So so those are all the planets involved, and it's quite a gathering. You're absolutely right.
It's a gathering, but I think that, when you look at where we are now, you can see the underpinnings of this building. I mean, we certainly see that. We're seeing a lot of things being torn down, which would be a very Plutonian in that regard, things being undone, regulations being undone, rolled back. All those sort of things are sort of the destructive piece that we would see with Pluto. I think that's kind of safe to say. We're seeing a lot of that happening already. And it's a very slow-moving process, so we may see more of that, I think, going forward. Right.
No, I absolutely agree. And Pluto started off this whole Capricorn phase. And he was the only one really there for a long time. I mean, of the slow guys. Now, little by little, the other ones are starting to come in. It was like, okay, this is an important time in history, so they're all gathering. They're all gathering, to kind of be involved with this big turning point in society, really.
Right, it's huge. And I think we're going to see it, like you say, it is a worldwide effect, for sure. I think that we can see this in many different countries. We see a lot of different countries that are sort of restructuring themselves, and there's a lot of talk of sort of the pendulum swinging in different directions than it has in the past, and that's probably a very strong indication of what we have in store. Of course, when the pendulum swings one direction, we all know that it has to swing back, which is the encouraging piece.
And that's where there's always a phase, and unless whoever is being born with this stellium, stellium is 5 planets in one sign, and then baby is going to be born that has this chart. So, they're going to be with it their entire life. Of course, my feeling about your personal astrology chart, this person chose it. I mean, we chose our chart. They, for whatever reason, maybe another lifetime, they were kind of floaty and they wanted to be really grounded this lifetime. So I want to have several planets in the sign of Capricorn. And of course, if the sun, and when the sun and the moon are there, that Capricorn party is going to get a lot bigger too. So this is just kind of the peak of really the slow ones. I took all the fast-moving planets out when I printed out this chart, and this whole article on this chart's on my website, as you can look at. But I took all the rest of the planets out so we could really focus on only the ones that were involved.
Yeah, that's wise. I mean, and those the ones that are involved, actually, as we mentioned earlier, they are the serious players of the zodiac. So we know that this means business, and I think that this is, especially when you refer to the environment, I think is a very viable area to look. Because of, we are sort of denying some things, at least some people are denying some things. And as a result of that, we may be paying the price for that, sort of denial, I think, at that point. We can't keep spewing coal into the air and expect it to get better. This may be a final term when we see that we must go with alternative energies, renewable energies at that point in time.
Right. I do feel that this is going to be the end of a phase.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The end of a Capricorn phase, it really is. And we're, we have to kind of go from here through it to get to the end of it. But you can really see that this is going to be, in fact, when Pluto went into Capricorn, I wrote an article, of course, about that. I write all the time. And I was saying that when more planets get into Capricorn, and of course, we're talking about it now, it's going to fall under its own weight.
Yes, I can see that.
It's just, if Capricorn is lead, 5 planets and 4 planets Capricorn is heavy. So it's going to fall under its own bureaucracy weight. And you can kind of see that happening. And sure enough, here now it's just starting. And of course, we're going to be hearing a lot more about this. This is just the very, very beginning of, astrologers have been studying this for a while, but we haven't really been explaining it to people quite yet.
Right. And when you say suffering under its own weight, how do you envision that? Do you see this sort of as I envision the suffering under its own weight as something sort of, having its back broken by the burden it carries. And then, as a result of the back being broken, you then shake off the load, and then you come back as a new entity or in a new framework, which, of course, by that time would be very Aquarian as we move into that sort of universal kind of brotherhood like sign. I think that might be a logical place for it to all unfold and land eventually, right?
Oh yeah. They're all going to go in there, and but this is like the and I do want to talk about that, kind of when we come back from a break towards the end, because that's really where all this is headed. But this is, it just feels so heavy, and it really is a sense of falling. It's like when somebody gains 300 pounds. They're just trudging along or something. So we really fall under its own weight just because of all the rules and the bureaucracy and the putting corporations, entities above humanity, above people. Yeah. And Capricorn really represents corporations. I mean, it's business, corporations, money, government. So they're the ones that thinking they're in charge right now. They're going to have a rude awakening when things start going into Aquarius.
Right. And, it may be that we sort of march to that place because people become less and less humanized as we move our way into the digital domain. And this might be the place where, corporations do take over, or we are ruled by a different form of entity, large entities, which may be something like an Apple or a Google, where they have control over us. I'm not suggesting that's true, but I'm just saying it's a postulate to think about, where these entities, large entities, which are very Capricornian, then sort of remove the individuality that we have as individuals, because we're moving further. We're kind of like lemmings in this regard. We're marching towards the end of the cliff there.
Right. Yeah. No, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch, and only astrology provides this kind of overview that allows us to get this long view. I mean, we can postulate a lot about where we could see history taking us. We know that history repeats itself, and the reason history repeats itself is because cycles repeat themselves, just as we see in astrology. We are talking today with Susie Cox. Her website is susiecox.com, SUSIECOX.com, and she's a marvelous astrologer. She generates a lot of stuff every day. She does a blog. She writes informational, and she's very much of an optimistic astrologer. I encourage you to check out her website, susiecox.com. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back in a few minutes to sort of figure out where the which way the pendulum might go on the return trip. So hang in there, folks, and we'll be right back and pick up where we left off.
What is your destiny? Where are you going? What is your real purpose? Do you know? Do you want to know? Of course you do. It's your duty to yourself. We are all here for a reason, and we all have great potential. Discover all of this and more with a professional astrology reading. My name is Chris Flisher, and I can help you. Discover your strengths and work on your weaknesses, and live your life to its fullest capacity. Based on your birthday, birthplace, and birth time, an authentic astrology reading will allow you to live your life to the fullest and reveal your true purpose. Only real astrology can give you real information. It is your destiny, and it is your path. Write me at chris@chrisflisher.com and book a reading today, or call me at 978-393-1036. That's 978-393-1036. www.chrisflisher.com.
Astrology is the science of spirit, and it can serve as an invaluable aid in making the difficult choices in life and seeking truth in all the directions we choose. It holds the potential to allow each of us to evolve to our highest potential. It is the logic of the universe, the code of existence, and the pathway to true wisdom. It is our duty to draw from it the instructions for our lives and to live them to our fullest potential. As the great wheel turns, we are best prepared when we are best informed.
Hi, your host, Chris Flisher here. I've been producer and host of this podcast and radio show for the past 10 years. My goal has always been to provide enlightening, progressive, and logical discussions about where we are as a species and how we move ourselves further down the road towards our greater potential. I believe astrology provides a great tool for observing our progress and awakening our consciousness to becoming a whole, better, and more complete individuals. I have sought to invite the best contemporary guests, thought leaders, and progressive minds to discuss topics that concern us all, regardless of your beliefs. Consider making a contribution through PayPal to help keep the great wheel turning so that I can continue for the next 10 years along the same enlightened path. As always, I thank you for your support.
Okay, welcome back to Turning of the Wheel. My guest today is Susie Cox. Her website is susiecox.com. It's SUSIECOX.com. And she's located out in Arizona. I encourage you to contact her and look at her website. She's got a lot of great information out there. Great writer. There's a lot of very optimistic, kind of forward-thinking astrology, which is my favorite kind. I love to be. I have Jupiter in my in Aries in my 8th house, so I'm very much of a inflated kind of optimist in that regard, and I love that whole idea. And I'm very much that way. I like to think that, I guess the way I feel is that for every hardship that you endure, there is a reward somewhere. I think that that's part of the the nature of life, that sort of that yin and yang, that flow of back and forth. I think we all experience that. But we're talking today about 2020. We're not talking about the eye doctor. We're talking about the astrology of the year 2020, when we find Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, and then again Mars coming along to trigger this, what Susie has affectionately called the Pluto party, but I'm not sure it's a party, but it's going to be quite
Capricorn party.
Capricorn party. It's going to be quite a gathering of very powerful, influential planets collected together where their influence is magnified. So I'm curious where you sort of see this unfolding. I mean, aside from the things that we spoke about, I mean, we talked about structure. What are some of the more specifics?
Well, there's one more player before we go there. There's one more very important player in this party that I do not want to leave out, and that's the South Node.
Right.
That's the South Node. South Node is joining all of these planets over here, and and the nodes, I don't really talk about the nodes too much, except in personal charts. And, my background's in astronomy, so I love, looking at how all the planets connect with each other.
Yeah, it's great.
And what is a node astronomically? It's an intersecting point.
Right.
It's an intersecting point, and there are 2 points. There's a north node and a south node that form a plane in space. And these planes in space are where the orbit of the moon intersects with the path of the sun, or the path of the sun is called the ecliptic. The point where the moon's orbit crosses the ecliptic going into the northern latitude is called the north node. The point where the moon's orbit crosses into the southern latitude is called the south node. Mm-hmm. So they really are, points in space. Now, the nodes, most people understand the nodes. They're pretty famous because when either of the nodes join the sun and the moon, there's an eclipse. So when the sun and the moon joins a node, there's an eclipse, because a node is an intersecting point. We've got nodes in our body. Well, there's nodes in the sky too. Right. So it's an intersecting point. So it's where the sun and the moon line up, and then of course the sun or the moon the light gets blocked, by the other planet. Right. So that's what the nodes are physically. Metaphysically, they describe what we've done in previous lives, or our deep, deep patterns. And the North Node kind of represents our destiny and, what we want to accomplish. And to me, it's like moving forward. This is what I've accomplished in my past, or my skill set that I have from my past lives, and this is how I'm going to be using it this lifetime. Mm-hmm. The South Node, the infamous South Node, is the unfinished business that needs to be released. And in a chart, the South Node is the most difficult part of everybody's chart. Yeah. It really is. That the South Node has the toughest job of helping release deep patterns that basically don't want to be released. Mm-hmm. So the South Node, unfinished business. By the way, the South Node relates to, as connected with, obsessions and addictions. Interesting. Yeah. So here we have the South Node in Capricorn, and it's like addicted to structure or government, or obsessed with, being controlled. So on one level, the South Node kind of added, it's almost like a pit falling into a pit.
Yeah, there's a sense of dependency there, I think, is a good word. Because
dependency, that's a good word. Mm-hmm. Addictions, obsessions, dependency. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good word for it. And so this is like, we're being dependent on all this corporate structure and corporate, corporations is really, I think one of the best words for a Capricorn. So the South Node is like, okay, done. this has been going on for a while, and it's time to release this. Now, if the North Node would have been there, it would have been more like, this is working and we're moving forward with this and we're going to learn from this Capricorn corporate time and really use it. The South Node is really a sense of releasing it. Mm-hmm. It really is. It's like releasing and letting it go. And this, and really the two players here, the South Node and Mars. South Node is like, oh boy, I'm going to get rid of some of this old stuff that is unnecessary burden. Mm-hmm. It really, this would be unnecessary burden that has been put on society and burdendom. Now, if Saturn makes the rules, the South Node likes to break the rules, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah, sure.
So here's Pluto and Saturn that have come in and said, okay, we're creating this structured society. South Node was like, I'm going to break these rules. Everybody's addicted to this. And, a lot of wealthy people are using this to even make more money. So, addicted to stuff or addicted to money. Capricorn is about money, of course. So the South Node is going to come in and really break the rules here and change the pattern. So we don't have to really, it's like we're going to let this go because people are too addicted to this.
Right, I can see that. I mean, I could see that.
South Node is a big player in this whole game.
No, I think that's a very astute observation, and I think that the idea that perhaps I'm not even sure that Citizens United could be overturned. It could be overturned legally on the books, but would it change the way people donate money? I doubt it.
Right.
Right, but now that you have the South Node and Jupiter there, this could be a sort of a tearing down of a pre-existing condition, for lack of a better word. I mean, that's sort of governmental. Yes. I think of Capricorn as being large government as well. So this would be, something about the way that governments operate. Do they operate now that we're in a digital world? They could be much more streamlined. They could be much more. A lot of things could unfold as a result of how this is restructured, I think.
Absolutely. No, this is going to be a positive thing. Mm-hmm. Some of the politicians might not think so, but this is going to be a positive thing. It's like clearing out all the heaviness, clearing out all the, it's almost like big piles of boxes in the corner of a room that, oh man, I really need to go through all that stuff. And then the South Node comes in, cleans out the boxes, throws it all away.
Yeah.
So all the heavy stuff South Node is going to take care of.
Do you think, do you see any point in time, I mean, you mentioned Mars earlier, do you see a sort of a French Revolution happening here?
I actually do.
I do too.
I really do. Now, it might be when these planets are going into Capricorn, into Aquarius.
Into Aquarius, right. After the effect.
Yeah,
right.
and this chart that I printed it was March 20th, 2020, mm-hmm. and Saturn is at 29 degrees Capricorn, which means it's going to go into Aquarius kind of right after that. And then Mars is going to go into Aquarius. Now, Capricorn is structure. Aquarius is the rebel. Aquarius is the one that likes to break down structures and create something new. Aquarius is what is associated with the internet, digital. My image for Aquarius is a lot of people in a circle holding hands, focusing on one goal.
Right. I think of it as a humanitarian kind of greater, larger, good for all kind of sign.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The classic definition of Aquarius is the internet. When Uranus went into Aquarius in the early 90s, that's really when the internet kind of kicked in. Mm-hmm. And so now everybody's on their, phone or computer or tablet or whatever, and we're connected with everybody all around the world. Facebook is the perfect Aquarius thing.
It is, but it's changed the discourse dramatically because now, instead of referring to public figures to sort of lead our lives, we are sort of owning our own situations, and for better or for worse, we are out there branding ourselves, and it's an odd construct, I have to say. I mean, I understand all the value.
Social media.
Yeah.
It's going to go really from structure and corporations to social media being in control, or the consensus. Aquarius would be like a consensus rather than the hierarchy of Capricorn. I'm the president. There's a vice president. There's a the Aquarius is like we're a collective. We're all gonna come up with a consensus, which is a little unusual too. So, but
it's unusual, but it does have some rebellion to it. That's what I'm saying. I think that there's a sense of, a Marie Antoinette moment here coming up in the future, where, especially as we see all this collection of wealth at the top, this is, sort of let them eat cake moment. And I think that we're not going to be putting up with it anymore. And this might be when that spark is lit, which is a good thing.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a good thing, because with all, it got to a peak and this heaviness with all this Capricorn. It was like, oh, this is the peak of it, and the end of it. Right. Then it starts going into Aquarius. Now, Aquarius is the rebel. Aquarius is the future, where Capricorn is kind of status quo, it's like maintaining status quo for personal reasons. Right. I want this rule because it'll give me more money, or something. So really that's the maintaining the status quo for personal gain. Aquarius is really about the group and the collective. And it's not as financially grounded. It's an air sign, and Aquarius is more about communication and getting everybody in doing something new and different. A lot of Capricorn is business. Aquarius is going to be entrepreneurial.
Yeah, I think
people want to be doing their own thing. They don't want to have a boss. They want to be their own boss, like you and I. Do you have a boss?
I don't. It's me.
I don't.
I look in the mirror. There he is.
I don't have my boss is me too. So,
yeah, I know.
So, but this is going to happen to a lot of people that they're like, I'm done with the corporate world. They weren't there for me. They took away any, in here I was supposed to retire and take this or whatever. I'm going to start something new. So there's going to be being disillusioned with the corporate world and the financial world going into Aquarius.
I think it's going to be a return to Earth, too, kind of quality to it. And what I mean by that is maybe not necessarily Earth per se as an element, but return to a primal way of living whereby we are more tribal in nature, where we become more dependent upon each other for support rather than trying to find comfort in the government or big agencies. I see this more as very much of like the initial age of Aquarius, as was referred to in the play Hair years ago when I was a kid. The idea of sort of building maybe even a revival of the hippie theme, which I thought was pretty cool at the time. I could almost see that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Love, peace, and unity.
Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing the matter with that.
It really was a good idea, and it can work. And I think that the way this sort of puzzle is coming together is it could easily find us in a situation where the best option for us all is to bind together, not through social media so much, but really with face to face in person kind of communities that can become self-sufficient outside of maybe even perhaps off the grid. Who knows? That could easily possibly.
I completely see that. Yeah, community. So you have Aquarius really is the collective, and people in a circle holding hands, focusing on one goal. They're this Capricorn is going to encourage that to happen. Because Capricorn is hierarchy. Oh, I'm in charge and I'll tell you what to do. When it goes into Aquarius, it's like, no, I'm going to tell myself what to do. Right. So it'll really be more of, I can see collectives, people getting together and working together with each other, maybe more commune type of things.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think there'll be a lot of, as the baby boomers, myself included, get into that age group where we're in our 70s or whatever, we may hearken back to the time in which we grew up. I grew up in a time, I lived on a commune for many years. I could see myself, I could see myself returning to that as a mutual support area, just because we all share the same sort of, purview. We have the same memories. We come from the same generation. We have our same values. And we have that common link, which then provides the glue for those kind of communities. I really like that.
Yep, I know. I completely agree with you. And so this is a very exciting time coming up. I mean, we really are living in one of the most exciting times in all of history. And even though it's kind of crazy and screwy, and I don't even really like to read a lot of the stuff in the newspaper, it's an exciting time. And we have to know that all of us chose to be here right now to watch this kind of wild ride that's happening.
Right. And I would even go so far as to say that we chose this moment to be here because we are the agents of change that can collectively bring about, can collectively get us across that line. And not, if we didn't have the experience of what we learned from our past lives or what we even learned in our recent lives, like you and I both living on communes, if we didn't know that experience, we wouldn't have been able to maybe reinvigorate that and get that back out there because we've already had that conversation. We've lived that life in some respects. And now here we are back. Perhaps this is the right time to, return to that. There's a certain comfort in tribe. The thing I like about tribe is that you're never alone. You always got someone who's got your back. If you can't get your car started one day, someone's there to help you. Or, it's just that it's a shared responsibility that is so vital to making life much more pleasant.
Tribe is a great word for Aquarius.
I think so.
It really is finding your tribe.
Yeah.
The people that you connect with, the ones that you want to be, that you want to support, and they're supporting you as a group kind of a feeling. And this is really a global tribe. It's not going to be just individual ones.
I agree.
But people are going to be working together globally. And I really think that climate is and the environment is going to pull us together because pollution doesn't stop at the border.
No.
Or so we're kind of all in this together.
We
so
are, and there's something good about that because what makes people move is some sort of hardship, and if we are faced with a climate or environmental hardship, that is going to bind us together. I always thought as a kid that the only way we're ever going to stop war is if we had to fight a common enemy across as a planet, and the common enemy in this case may very well be our Mother Earth, who's damaged. Yeah, and we've got to not necessarily fight her, but at least try to fight to repair her, I would say.
Yes, yeah. And the Aquarius really will do that. And even though we got this big Capricorn hill to crawl over, I mean, it really is. It's like we're crawling up this big hill. There's the other side of the hill. We'll get to the top of the hill, and then we're going to go down on the other side, and then we go to the other side. It's going to be the land of Aquarius. Yeah. So it really is going to be completely different.
That also speaks to the idea of the pendulum. The pendulum is going to swing one way, and then it's going to gradually work its way back. This is a common, this is a recurring theme through all of history, and I think that you look at any point in time through history, you're going to see the hardship is there before the prosperity on the other end comes back to it. This is what life is all about. These are what the squares in the chart are. These are like climbing the stairs. You got to go up the stair to climb and get through that square in order to get to the top. And when you get there, the effort I think the effort will be rewarded. I think we'll be rewarded is what I guess it comes down to.
I feel very good about, the world is not going to, go to hell. Everything's going to be fine. Yeah, we got some tough times coming up, but we have to, this is a collective challenge for all of us. That's why we're all here right now to take a look at this. And of course, this is not just happening on a government level, it's happening on a personal level.
Absolutely.
And I'm talking to a lot of people now, including myself, at a big yard sale this weekend, getting rid of stuff.
Yeah.
Letting stuff go. A lot of people are like, I accumulated too much stuff. I want to get rid of it. So it really is kind of a sense of purging in a certain way.
Absolutely.
And I'm seeing a lot of people doing this, even if they're not going, hey, I'm doing a Capricorn purge. A lot of people are just like, I got too much stuff. I'm getting rid of things.
And it's something I've wrestled with myself. I'm doing it myself. It's a big job, and not one. And one that sort of haunts me. I'm almost paralyzed by the fact that I've got so much stuff and what to do with it. But I do know it's necessary, and I know how much happier I will be as I get older, and I'm feeling lighter. Is what it comes down to. You'll feel lighter, which speaks to the air quality of the Aquarius. We will be focusing more. You'll be focused more on our intellect and our relationships, far more so than our things, our material goods, which no longer do us.
Stuff. This is the peak of stuff. Yeah. The peak of the corporate world. The peak of the accumulation of money. And then when it goes into Aquarius, what are keywords for Aquarius? Freedom.
Yeah,
independence, entrepreneur, the collective, the tribe, the global tribe, people working together with each other, individually, everybody individually working together as a group.
Yeah, and
which is that Aquarius sense,
and I
which
love
is
that.
so exciting.
I love that. One of the things about capitalism, not to get too political, is that it requires that there has to be a certain amount of mechanism that keeps the thing going. And if all of the money is collected at the top, as it is, none of that it gets moving because it's not in the middle class. If the middle class has the money, it will move, and that'll work. This may very well be because all the money is being sucked out of the middle class. This may be what brings that whole thing crashing down. And then we say, okay, look, we don't need this stuff anymore. We're not going to buy the latest gadget every 6 months. We're going to be satisfied with our old gadgets, or we're going to go back to using, carrier pigeons and smoke signals to talk. I don't know, but the idea would be that this would be the sort of the end of that capitalistic structure where it's all trying to suck the money out of the middle class. But if we haven't got it, we can't keep it going, which is kind of very simple. That's why I never thought trickle-down economy ever worked in my mind, but I don't want to get off on that subject.
It never worked. It never worked. It never, and it won't work this time. Right. I mean, it's just like you give more money and they're going to give it away. No, they already have money and they're not giving it away now. More money, is that going to change it? I don't know.
So this could be this could be the harbinger of that whole moment where that whole thing turns, and that could be very helpful for all of us.
Absolutely. And, just all of us need to know that this is part of the plan. Yeah. This is part of this big Capricorn grouping party, is here to really bring it to the peak so it can really fall and then go into the Aquarius, which is going to be that sense of the collective and freedom and independence and where people working together. And it really is a consensus versus a hierarchy. So we're going from a hierarchy in Capricorn, I'm in charge and I'm going to tell you what to do, to a consensus society. Yeah. Which everybody are going to be doing what they want because they know that's the appropriate thing for them. Yeah. So it's a change in society. It's a change in consciousness that somehow the planets are part of this the pattern and theme.
They are,
and that's why I love astrology so much, because we can kind of see where we are and where we're going.
It really is clearly there. And this is sort of, you have to have, like a volcano getting ready to explode or an earthquake getting ready to part the earth. You've got to have this underlying pressure that builds and builds and builds and builds and builds until it reaches a crescendo. When it hits that crescendo, then the release, and then you begin again. And that's what I think we're going to be encountering. And I don't think that we have to run for the hills with this. I think we just, being forewarned is being forearmed, I always say. And I think that this, knowing that this is out there in the future, we prepare ourselves today for the eventuality of that and say, how do I get ready for this? I get rid of my stuff. I look to new ways of living. I look for a community. I try to build these bonds. And in that regard, it can empower us dramatically.
And this Capricorn is not just empowering the elite, it's empowering all of us.
That's right.
It's giving all of us a voice. I'm writing to my senators all the time. I email them pretty often. I never did that before this phase. Yeah. I never did.
Yeah, so
I never felt like I had to.
You've been inspired.
No, I've been very, very active, and I have a lot of people that are like, I'm calling my senator. I'm calling, so this is not just the outside imposing us. We are all becoming kind of Capricorn.
Oh, absolutely.
So we all have that sense of authority inside of us to find our own voice, to be strong during this time.
And more and more people are stepping into the world of politics that never were before. I've read some articles in the New York Times lately about real estate agents and dentists and teachers. All these people are entering into the local politics because they want to influence change from the bottom. Because they saw what happened when they
positive way.
They want to see. They saw what happened when they didn't pay attention. Now they've got our attention.
Another good word for Aquarius: grassroots.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Grassroots, everybody, the tribe, everybody coming together, individually working together as a collective. And grassroots, and I mean, that's going to make the change. That's where everything's going to be changing, is with the grassroots efforts.
And I think underneath all of that, there's a basic sort of inherited or intellectual, philosophical kind of glue that holds that all together. I think that there's a real sort of, and I think the only way you get that philosophical, intellectual view is to have walked the walk. So those of us who have walked the walk, who arrive at that period in time, say, look, we've seen what works, we've seen what doesn't work, and that speaks again to the intellect air quality of Aquarius. We get this sort of new philosophy, a new way of living, a new outlook, a new, a new perspective, and I think that's going to be very, very encouraging. I mean, I really do.
Yeah, so for me, instead of getting stuck with, oh, we got this a tough time, this tough time is going to make us all stronger, so we really can go into this Aquarius independent phase with conviction. It's like, this is important. We have to feel free because look at where we've come from.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you need the contrast to be able to see where you want to go.
Well, it's like you don't miss your well till your water runs dry, or whatever that was.
Right,
You don't miss your water till your well runs dry. you knew what I meant. But and I think that's very much the case that we're seeing now. We don't miss our Obama till we have this or whatever, not to get off on that track. But and I think that these are not so subtle reminders in how we have to go. We need to be prodded. One of the things that when you do a personal chart, I always look for the squares immediately because the trines are they're sort of gifts, and we know nothing much gets done with the trine. It's all things come to the person or whatever easily in that regard. But it's the hardship that builds the character that makes you aware and gives you the fortitude to make the change. It's the hardship that has to happen. It's all part of what life is about. Just that simple.
Mm-hmm. And this Capricorn is like, we're going to make everybody tough, so you know what's really important in life, so you can all move forward as a group.
Yeah, and it's really, I think that we have to, and I like yourself, I'm very much of an optimist. I see that we've got some muddy roads ahead of us, but soon the highway will get clear and we'll be okay. And I think that it's just a matter of being diligent and patient and learning as we go through this how to do things one way and how not to do things another way. And I think that's what we'll be undoing things that maybe weren't very successful in the past and replacing them with things that are more logical. So
that's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
Very interesting stuff. I think that we have to sort of, as a parting word here, I think we both have to, all of us have to approach this in that with that as a framework. Is the idea that yes, it's going to be a little bit difficult for a while, but we're going to get through it. Just like going to the dentist, it's going to get done when you're done, and you're going to walk out of there feeling much better. It's going to be similar to that. We have to go through this hardship for a while, but this I think astrology provides this wonderful validation for us to say to be pre-warned and to be prepared, so that when it does,
this is all meant to happen right now. I mean, so. All of this weird stuff that's happening with governments really around the world, it's meant to happen because look at the astrology of it.
It's just right
so
on the
astrology confirms what is really happening in the world instead of like, oh no, this is so terrible. Why is this going on? Hey, we got a party in Capricorn. Of course this is happening now.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's here to teach us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and that's the beauty of astrology, and that's what I try to get across to people by doing this, and you're doing your work as well, is to try to make it somewhat not quite so sobering and onerous, but rather to have a little bit of light in there to help you see that at the end of the tunnel there is a gleam of light there somewhere.
Well, my purpose in astrology, when I do a chart and also in any of these lectures or writing that I do, is to empower and uplift.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Feel more empowered because, hey, we got this Capricorn we're supposed to, and it's making us stronger, and to uplift.
And we can see the information. Yeah, we see the information there, and we're able to interpret and digest it and take it away.
Empowered?
Yeah.
And therefore uplifted because, like, hey, we're supposed to be here during this time, and we are going to go into Aquarius, and it will all be fine. It really will be.
Yeah, it will be fine. I agree with you, and it's been great to talk to you. My guest today has been My guest today has been Susie Cox. Her website is susiecox.com, SUSIECOX.com. I encourage you to check out her newsletter. She's got a newsletter. She does a lot of great work every day. It's a good site to touch base with and check in on and touch base with her, and I'm sure she'd be happy to help you if you've got questions about this. There is light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's the most important thing, and we're going to see it, and it's going to be okay, everybody. So, but Susie, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been great having a conversation.
Thank you, Chris. You do a wonderful job. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.
You've been listening to Turning of the Wheel with your host, Chris Flisher. To schedule a reading with me or to order artwork, you may visit my website at www.turningofthewheel.com. That's www.turningofthewheel.com. Or you can call me at 978-393-1036. Thank you. And as always, be open to possibilities.